Speaking of Chinese construction, how about that rocket that crash landed? A long march. It was a long march.
You know, what's the problem, Chris? Other rockets crash land too.
What evidence is there that other out-of-control rockets are any more out of control than China's?
Yeah, that's the defense. This is what we're talking about the propaganda, right?
Crazy pants.
Right. I mean, yeah, and I think that the point that like other countries' rockets do also have accidents, like yes, it happens, but China's was not like, it wasn't so much an accident as it was like a design flaw through this kind of careless, like not bother to add enough like booster rockets so that the trajectory could be changed should there be, should it fall out of orbit.
What went wrong with this rocket are things that like spacefaring nations have already figured out. And there's a solution already in place to prevent something like this from happening.
They just didn't build it in.
They didn't care because China's in a rush to dominate the space race.
Right. And I think also like a lot of what China does is this kind of carelessness and like in terms of like leaving space junk, right, in orbit, which is increasingly dangerous because you've got, even like a screw orbiting the planet is, it's traveling at like, 17,000 miles an hour.
If we saw gravity.
And so like even the tiniest thing can cause a major disaster because if that's going 17,000 and, your space station is going 16,000, that's a 1,000-mile-an-hour screw is like a very dangerous thing, right? And so for all these reasons, because physics, right? Because science, space junk is super, super dangerous. And the Chinese Communist Party does not seem to care how messy they're leaving space. And pretty soon, after 100 years, like no one's going to be able to leave the, atmosphere because it'll be too dangerous.
No, they just invented a space vacuum.
Shelley wins.
Yeah. Didn't Spaceballs have something like that?
That's right. That's right.
That's the technology we need.
Yeah. But it's really scary that China is building a space station. Like this rocket that went out of control and could have crashed anywhere on the planet was carrying parts for the Chinese space station, which they're building because they're banned from the International Space Station because China's space program is run by the Chinese military. The same people that like to crush students in tanks.
Oh, that was years ago, Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah, now they just do it through lawfare.
Or escalators.
Ugh.
But yeah, like think of like you were mentioning, Matt, the debris that could be created in space from China doing a bad job building a space station. And I'm like, what if that crashes down on people's heads? That'd be worse than just a rocket.
Well, I mean, statistically speaking, it's more likely that it would just crash into the ocean somewhere, given how much of the planet is covered in water.
But statistically speaking, eventually every possibility becomes certain.
Yeah, but like, okay, so 75% of the Earth's surface is water, something like that, right? And then of the land portion, only a small part is populated. But yeah, if you do it enough times, you're going to hit populated areas eventually. And the scary thing, I think, is just that you have no control. And as the space stations or other, things in space become bigger and bigger, you just end up with, like, imagine, like 50 years from now, the Communist Party is building like a Star Trek size spacecraft, right? Like,
sure.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like Star Trek.
But it's made by the same construction company that did the Glass Bridge.
Well,
right. And so like pieces of it start falling off, right? And then they just strike anywhere. So yeah, so it's pretty dangerous.
Well, more dangerous for the people who are in the Star Trek spaceship that's just coming apart.
Yes. Well, I don't imagine the Communist Party would care all that much about those people either.
Realistically, what would come before that is China using its spacefaring technology to destroy U.S. satellites and GPS satellites, and then...
That's the real space war.
Yeah, and then China, all we have is China's version of GPS.
Oh, yeah, Beidou navigation system.
Yeah, that'll work great for the U.S. military. Space warfare has already begun, and the U.S. is behind.
Yeah, I mean, like, as funny as it sounds for the U.S. to have the Space Force, like, it's actually a super legit idea that should have been started like 20 years earlier. And,
I mean, 20 years early. Yeah, okay.
I think that's when Neil deGrasse Tyson first proposed it, right? In the early 2000s. I mean, I'm not saying it was originally his idea, could have come before that too, but like I've heard him talking about it before. So, but anyway, like China is weaponizing space. And this is not the falling debris part. This is just the general weaponizing of space.
Well, Matt, I mean, I think you're being a little unfair here because all these other countries like the US and Russia have had all this time to like put their space station in there. Are you saying that China can't build their own space station?
We're talking about space equity.
Well, just because
Communism in space.
it's just like, they should be allowed to pollute for another 30 years because they're still a developing country.
That is the logic they apply to China's version of the Paris Accord. How they get to keep polluting more and more as much as they want until 2030.
Yeah, it's only fair.
Yeah, I mean, I think.
Are you just trying to keep China down?
You're right. That's what I've been doing the whole time on this show.